The first time I saw a core ship, I thought it was a mountain. Not a mountain of rock or ice, but of steel, black glass, and alien will. It hung in the sky over Shanghai like it had grown there, blotting out half the city's sunlight. Its edges were wrong, too sharp, too deliberate, casting a shadow that didn't just fall on the buildings below, but on the people, too. We stopped working that day. Everyone did. The sound of construction hammers and auto fabricators faded, and even the ceaseless drone of delivery flyers thinned to silence. My father stood beside me, arms crossed, his face unreadable. He'd fought in the Lunar Defense War 22 years earlier, back when the Korth was still just rumors from the outer colonies. He'd seen their weapons firsthand. "They're not here to talk," he said quietly. "Remember that." 2 hours later, the first Korth soldiers marched through the streets. The Dominion didn't arrive with fire and ash. Not at first. No orbital bombardments, no global EMPs, no instant decapitation strikes. That came later, after they were done breaking our will. The Korth were methodical. Their ships descended over every major capital, releasing troop carriers the size of city buses. Out of them came the Drool, the Korth warrior caste. 10 feet tall, insectoid, their black chitin armor fused directly to their skin. Each carried a polearm that doubled as a railgun, and each moved with the casual confidence of a predator in its own hunting grounds. They didn't need to fire a shot to control us. The first week was enough to shatter our governments without a single official declaration of conquest. The United Earth Council met in panic sessions, issuing meaningless statements about diplomatic inquiries while the Corps broadcast their own message on every channel. "You are now under protection of the Voryn Dominion. You will be provided for. You will serve. You will obey." Protection meant obedience. Provision meant ration cards and curfews. And service meant we became their labor force, digging in mines we'd never see the profits from, fabricating weapons we'd never hold, farming food we'd never eat. When you grow up under occupation, you start measuring life in losses. The first thing to go was freedom of movement. Intercontinental travel became impossible without a Dominion-issued work permit, and those were given only to the compliant. Then came speech. Criticism of the Korth, even whispered in your own home, could bring the enforcers to your door at night. They didn't arrest you. They erased you. The third thing they took was pride. Every piece of human-made art, every flag, every historic monument, they either replaced it with their own symbols or destroyed it. In Beijing, they toppled the gate of heavenly peace and built a spire of order in its place, a needle of black stone that cast no shadow, no matter the sun's position. And yet, for most people, life went on. The Dominion fed us. They kept the power grids running. They stopped human wars, or at least claimed to. People adapted. A century is a long time to be a slave, long enough for the chains to feel like home. My father refused to adapt. Before the Korth came, he'd been a systems engineer, one of the best in the Eurasian Alliance. After they came, he became something else, something more dangerous. He called it pushing back. It started small. A shipment of Dominion weapons would go missing en route to a garrison. A power relay station serving a Korth-controlled mine would fail mysteriously. A storage vault holding luxury goods for Korth governors would suffer a sudden decompression accident. The Dominion called these isolated incidents. My father called them practice. He never told me everything, but I knew enough to see the pattern. He was building a network. Former soldiers, smugglers, hackers, miners, anyone with the courage to act. He didn't trust the big resistance groups. They'd been infiltrated and gutted too many times. He kept his circle small, and he kept it moving. I grew up in that shadow world. One week we'd be living in a tiny apartment in Manila, the next in a fishing shack on the Aleutian coast, the next in a safe house carved into the side of an abandoned magrail tunnel. My father taught me to shoot before I learned to drive. He taught me to speak in code, to recognize a tale, to read a room before stepping into it. And he taught me the one rule that mattered. The Korth control us because we believe they can. Break that belief, and the empire dies. The first time I saw him kill a Korth was in Jakarta. We were meeting a contact in the lower levels of an old arcology, one of those megastructures the Dominion had reproposed as a labor dormitory. The contact never showed. Instead, A squad of Drool enforcers came stomping down the corridor, their black carapace armor gleaming under the flickering lights. One of them barked something in Korthic, and the translator implanted in my ear rendered it into harsh English. Unregistered humans. Surrender for processing. I froze. Processing meant interrogation. Interrogation meant death. My father didn't freeze. He stepped forward, hands raised as if to comply, and then in one fluid motion, he drew the concealed plasma cutter from his coat and drove the blade into the Drool's throat. The alien collapsed with a shriek like tearing metal. The others hesitated, surprised a primitive could strike so fast. That hesitation was all he needed. 2 more went down before the rest fell back, dragging their dead. We slipped out through a maintenance shaft and didn't stop moving until we were 3 sectors away. Later, sitting in a safe house with the sting of alienica still on my clothes, I asked him why he'd done it. Why not run? He looked at me like I'd missed something obvious. Because they think we won't fight. Because every time we prove them wrong, they get weaker. The Dominion didn't see my father as a threat. Not then. He was just one man among billions, a small, irritating problem in a galaxy they already controlled. But they kept files on him. They kept files on everyone. The day they came for him was a cold winter morning in New Warsaw. I woke to the sound of the door being blown off its hinges. My father was already on his feet, shoving a data chip into my hand. "Go out the back," he said. "Find Rafik. Tell him it's time." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at him, because in that moment I understood what "it's time" meant. The Drool stormed in. They didn't bother with words. 2 of them grabbed him. One slammed me against the wall hard enough to make the world spin. My father didn't resist. He didn't look at me again. They took him. They made me watch the execution 3 days later. The Dominion called it a public order demonstration. A crowd of 1,000 humans stood in the snow as the Korth governor read a list of his crimes against the peace. They didn't just kill him. They erased him, burned his body with a disintegration lance, scattered the ashes over the spire of order, deleted his name from every public record. The Korth high voice delivered the final words. This is the fate of all primitives who defy the Dominion. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the governor, at his gleaming armor and the smug tilt of his mandibles, and I swore. Not the kind of oath you speak aloud. The kind you etch into your bones. They thought we were too primitive to rule, too divided to rise, too weak to take what was theirs. They were wrong. I walked out of that square with the data chip my father had given me still hidden in my coat. Inside it were maps, codes, and the names of every human cell in the free network. It wasn't just a resistance plan. It was a war plan. And it started with the one thing the Korth never thought a human could do. Take their throne. The Dominion didn't lose ships. Not here. Not in this sector. That's what made the wreck so valuable and so dangerous. I'd been sent on what should have been a routine supply run. Food rations to a human settlement on Califor, one of those barely habitable mining moons a Korth used for processing rare ore. My crew was 5 people and a half-working cargo hauler that smelled permanently of coolant leaks. Halfway there, the sensors lit up with an anomaly, a massive energy flare in the desert just outside Calator's main colony. We banked low, ignoring the Dominion's restricted airspace beacons. That was when we saw it, a Korth carrier, one of their sleek black leviathans, split in half and smoking in the sand. Its forward section was buried, its engine still glowing with residual heat. How the hell? RYNN, my pilot, whispered. Meteor shower, someone guessed. I shook my head. No. Look at the blast pattern. Shields failed before impact. We'd barely touched down before the sound of dropships reached us. Dominion cleanup crews. Their orders would be simple. Recover tech, kill witnesses. But they hadn't expected us. We hit them before they could secure the crash site. 4 humans with scavenge rifles against a squad of Dominion enforcers in full chitin armor. Normally, that meant we were dead before we pulled the trigger. But the desert wind was on our side. A sandstorm rolled in, visibility dropped to 10 meters, and in that chaos, human desperation became more dangerous than alien training. I remember the way the first Korth soldier fell, not to my rifle, but to a sharpened mining tool driven straight through the gaps in his armor. By the time the sandstorm broke, the cleanup crew was dead. Inside the wreck, the air was thick with scorched metal and alien blood. We passed shattered consoles, corridors flooded with flickering emergency lights, and the bodies of Korth officers still strapped to their command chairs. That's when I saw it, a core unit, still glowing faint blue, sitting inside a shattered navigation console. It was about the size of a human's torso, etched with alien glyphs. RYNN whistled. That's a nav core. Not just any nav core. A Dominion Imperial nav core. These weren't standard navigation systems. They were strategic maps, encrypted, multilayered, and updated in real time with every military route, supply line, and defense network the Dominion maintained. Normally, they were destroyed before an enemy could capture them. This one had survived. Back in our hauler, I linked it to the stolen decrypt my father had left me years ago, a clunky human-made device wrapped in scavenged alien tech. The display flickered, then bloomed into a galaxy-wide star chart. It showed everything. Every patrol, every blockade, every weak point. And there, highlighted in crimson, was Throne World, the Dominion's capital, the beating heart of their empire. We didn't keep this to ourselves. Not yet. We flew to the hidden asteroid base of the Council of the Free, a fractured coalition of human-resistant cells, smugglers, and warlords who hated each other almost as much as they hated the Korth. The place smelled like rust and desperation. When I dropped the nav core on the table, the room went silent. An older captain with a cybernetic jaw leaned forward. "Tell me that isn't what I think it is." "It is," I said, "and I know what you're thinking. This is our chance." The Council's laughter was bitter. One of them, a scarred ex-mercenary named Talon, shook his head. "Throne World's a fortress. You need fleets, armies, supply lines. You don't just take it." "Not hit it," I said. "Take it." That shut them up. For hours, we argued. Some thought it was suicide. Others said it was the only way to break the Dominion's grip. In the end, desperation won. The plan was simple in words, impossible in practice. Unite the scattered human fleets. Strike deep into Dominion space using the Navcorps' secret routes, bypass their outer defenses, and land troops on Throne World itself. The Corps thought of us as gnats. They wouldn't expect gnats to bite the heart. That night, alone in my quarters, I stared at the galaxy map again. My father's voice echoed in my head. They control us because we believe they can. Break that belief, and the empire dies. I touched the glowing icon for Throne World. "We're coming for your throne," I whispered. And somewhere, in the black reaches of space, the Dominion would soon feel the spark we had lit.